Now we want to explore the cosine function and graphing the cosine function. So over here on my right, I drew the basic cosine function. And a couple of key points just to kind of, so that we're aware of, is that first notice that the cosine function doesn't start at 0, 0. The cosine of 0 is a positive 1. And then from there, we see that our typical flow continues from that point forward or onto the right. Cosine of pi halves is 0. Cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. Cosine of pi is negative 1. And then back here at a cosine of 2 pi, one full rotation gives that also a result of 1. So our basic cosine function looks as such. So given that, let's look at an example. Let's graph y equals negative 3 cosine of pi halves x. And right away, I hope that you're looking at its amplitude to kind of get a sense of what's happening. So let's identify its amplitude. Its amplitude, we want its absolute value, so its amplitude is 3. So on my graph, I can go ahead and mark off a height of 3. My graph will not get any higher than that. And down here at negative 3, my graph will not get any lower than that. The next part of our graph that we wanted to deal with is this value right here that's inside the function. And that helps us determine the period of the graph. So we took this value, which is pi halves, and we divided it into a full regular period, which is 2 pi. So 2 pi divided by pi over 2 gives me a period of 4. So this graph that we have here, it runs one entire cycle over 4 units. So how does that help us out? What we wanted to discover, let's go ahead and 0. We know that we have some marker over here at 4. That makes one complete cycle. We know that something cool happens at every quarter mark, or divide that entire cycle into 4 parts. So we're going to take this 4, divided it by 4. So every 1 unit on this particular graph, something cool is happening. So here at 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Whoops, that's 2. Whoops, I lost my scale a little bit. All right, so here are the 4 significant parts or sections of the graph. My 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have 5 key points. I know that it was my second and my third point that hits 0. So my second point, my graph hits 0, and on the first point, second point, and on the third point, my graph hits 0. I know my normal cosine graph, it starts at its amplitude, which was 1. However, on this particular graph, its amplitude is at negative 3. So I start down here at negative 3. At this midpoint right here, I know that my graph is going to be at a maximum. And then again, at the end of the cycle down here at 4, the graph is going to be at a minimum. So I feel like I have enough of the key points. I have the accurate key points. So I'll go ahead and I'm able to start the graph. The graph starts down negative, works my way up to its 0. Here's a maximum right there. Comes back down through 0 with a minimum down there. And then this graph was asking me to extend it out from negative 4 to positive 4. So if I were to do that, sorry, a little quick there. My graph is going to continue on up through this point. It's going to have a maximum right about there, come down to that point, and have a minimum right there. So let's smooth that on out. And there I have my graph of y equals negative 3 cosine of pi halves x on a scale from negative 4 to positive 4.